Moving on to the news, the UK Prime Minister Theresa May has rejected calls to follow America's lead and stop selling weapons to Saudi Arabia, which is spearheading a bombing campaign in Yemen. RT's Polly Boyker reports in a moment, but let's first listen to exactly what Theresa May had to say.
As the Right Honourable Gentleman knows, we do have a very strict regime of export licences in relation to weapons here in the United Kingdom. We exercise that very carefully, and in recent years we have indeed refused export licences in relation to arms, including to Yemen and Saudi Arabia.
Theresa May says that Britain has a relationship with Saudi Arabia, but to people looking on, it looks increasingly like one of those relationships where you're so besotted that you fail to see the clear faults in your other half, because even the US has now suspended its arms sales to Saudi Arabia because of concerns about the number of civilian casualties in the conflict in Yemen, reportedly as a result of Saudi airstrikes. Officials in Washington have said that there was systematic and endemic problems in Saudi Arabia's bomb targeting, and yet Theresa May is staying loyal, much to the frustration of an increasing number of politicians here in Britain. Take a listen to what they have to say.
Will the Prime Minister commit today to halting arms sales to Saudi Arabia that have been used to prosecute this war in Yemen, with the humanitarian devastation that has resulted from that?
The United Nations believes that 60% of civilian casualties are caused by airstrikes. In the last 24 hours, the United States has stopped the supply of precision-guided munitions to Saudi Arabia to bomb Yemen. When will the UK follow suit?
There are official parliamentary reports that come out with firm recommendations saying that Britain needs to suspend its arms sales to the Saudis until there's an independent investigation looking into the alleged human rights abuses in Yemen. But the cold, hard reality is that it's a material world, and maybe, just maybe, Theresa May is a material girl, because Britain is the biggest arms supplier to Yemen. Saudi Arabia is Britain's biggest arms customer. Throughout the conflict in Yemen, Britain sold over £3 billion worth of weapons over to the Saudis. So we're talking about big business interests at stake here. And if Britain were to stop supplying weapons to the Saudis, it would leave a lot of British businesses out of pocket and the Saudis in the lurch. But the argument that critics have is that human lives matter much more than money. And if you look at the casualties piling up in Yemen, which is actually quite hard to do because the conflict is so tragically underreported, but there have been over 10,000 civilian casualties as a result of the conflict in Yemen. And there are real suspicions that many of those casualties are a result of Saudi airstrikes, which Britain, through continuing its arms sales to its ally, could be indirectly facilitating.
Theresa May also added that if international humanitarian law appears to have been violated in Yemen, then the UK will demand an investigation. Yemeni activist and journalist Hussein al-Bukaiti says that the UK actually blocked previous attempts to conduct such probes.
A statement by the UK Prime Minister, Mrs May, she has clearly lied about some facts. Does she remember that the UK was the one that have blocked two international UN investigation when the Dutch government has a draft to investigate all crime in Yemen, to form an international team to come into Yemen to investigate crime either by the Houthi, by Saleh forces, or by the Saudi-led coalition? The UK has blocked that, and as well, according to Amnesty International, which is based in London, there are many reports that have condemned Britain, and they have found some element or some weapons in Yemen that used in civilians area. So this is really clear that if the Saudi didn't get any weapons from the US and the UK, the war will stop now.